Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Monday, October 16th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 352 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Before we dive into the news, I just need to drop a quick correction/clarification. Last week, I reported on a story about a business in California who had purportedly and uniquely received the first business license issued by the County of Los Angeles, which handles all the business licensing logistics for the city of Malibu, but where legal cannabis businesses are not currently allowed. My characterization of what that business received from the County of Los Angeles was not quite right. Thankfully, listener Ben, who is an attorney practicing in California, caught my mistake and wrote in with some helpful clarifying details. Rather than issuing a business license, the County of LA actually gave out a certificate showing that the business has an account into which they're paying business taxes. Not exactly the same thing. Apparently, there's been a lot of confusion about the matter in Los Angeles, and I apologize for contributing to it with my not quite right reporting. Ben shared a good link with more information to follow up on. If you want to learn more about the whole thing, just open up lacityattorney.org/property-owners. That's lacityattorney.org/property-owners. We'll also throw a link to that site up on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Our top story of the day brings us out to Massachusetts, where Governor Charlie Baker is being criticized for his administration's failures to expand the state's medical marijuana program, even as a raft of proposed changes currently sits awaiting their approval that would greatly increase patient access. The proposed changes would allow nurse practitioners to recommend medical marijuana, let nursing home employees and hospice care workers administer it to registered patients, and give dispensaries more latitude over how they advertise and market their prices and products to patients. As it currently stands, the state's Department of Health has the power to implement the changes right away, but is kicking that can down the road and saying they're passing responsibility for the changes to the newly formed Cannabis Control Commission, which will be in charge of both medical and adult use markets later next year. Commission Chair Stephen Hoffman told the Boston Globe that until that changeover happens, nothing is stopping the Department of Health from implementing the proposed reforms. I'm sure we'll be checking back on this story more in the months ahead. Our second top story of the day is a piece in Consumer Affairs that looks at the lack of insurance available to legal marijuana cultivators in the context of Northern California's wildfires, which have killed more than 40 people, burned thousands of homes and businesses, and driven entire cities and towns to evacuate. As of today, those fires are still burning, though reports seem to indicate that fire crews are starting to make some progress in containing them. The Consumer Affairs piece looks at the disconnect between state and federal law and how that's affected the insurance options available to legal marijuana business owners. In short, it's made it nearly impossible for anyone in legal cannabis to properly insure their crops and products. State officials in Michigan say they're expecting a large wave of medical marijuana business license applications starting on December 15th. The first day they open up the process of applying for one of the 5 different types of licenses up for grabs, with those being for cultivators, testing facilities, processors, dispensaries, and transportation services. Michigan has one of the larger pools of medical marijuana patients in the country and has been swirled up in a bit of industry controversy over their plans to require existing medical dispensaries to shut down while applying for one of the new licenses. That would leave tens of thousands of patients without a source for their medicine, something state lawmakers are hoping to avoid with the introduction of a bill to allow dispensaries to stay open. Yesterday in Ann Arbor, Michigan, state marijuana officials held a session for the public to learn more about how things will operate under the new licensing scheme. Swing over to the Detroit Free Press for the full read on this one. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, the MJ Today Daily Century Club, those patron listeners giving at the $100 a month level and higher. Each of the Century Club members have their own reasons for supporting at such a generous level, but one of the most widely cited is the fact that Century Club members get $200 a month in ad credit that can be used on either this show or our weekly podcast, Marijuana Today. Donate $100 a month, get $200 a month back in ad credits. It's the best deal in legal marijuana media. And since those credits never expire, you can just sit back and let your credits build up until you're ready to use them. It's a fantastic solution for businesses with smaller marketing budgets. To take advantage of this perk and all the other advantages of being a member of the Century Club, just open up our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. Sign up at the $100 a month level and higher, and boom, you're in the Century Club. One last time, just open up our website, mjtodaydaily.com, click on that big blue button at the top of the page, and sign up at the $100 a month level and higher. All right, time for the Blitz. Rocky Mountain PBS has a good story up about the troubles noted cannabis researcher Dr. Sue Sisley is having in finding enough participants to carry out her study looking at how medical marijuana can help people living with PTSD. This is something I've touched on recently, with Dr. Sisley warning that her study was in jeopardy because officials with the Phoenix, Arizona Veterans Administration Hospital, where her work is based out of, are not allowing her access to the patient pool required to fill her study's participant spots. Rocky Mountain PBS looks at things from the perspective of the state of Colorado, which kicked in $2.1 million in funding, money that would be wasted should Dr. Sisley's study fall through. Turning to my corner of the country up here in Maine, we have news of a series of legal marijuana financial projections made by the state's Office of Fiscal and Program Review, a nonpartisan department that functions similarly to the Congressional Budget Office. With Maine working to enact adult use legalization and to install a working retail industry by sometime next year, state lawmakers are poised to cast their final votes on the proposed rules and regulations for how everything will work later this month. The new financial projections from the Office of Fiscal and Program Review were shared with the Legislative Committee on Thursday and had, as state analyst Mark Sear pointed out, quote, more cautionary notes than real projections, unquote, in part because of delays in getting information from various state agencies, likely because our white supremacist Governor Paul LePage has said that his administration would do everything they could to thwart the will of the people. Bouncing back to Massachusetts for a headline, we have news that the State Department of Health has released guidelines for how medical marijuana companies currently operating as nonprofit organizations can convert dispensaries over to for-profit enterprises. Swing over to the National Law Review for all the wonky details on this one. The Los Angeles City Council is considering a proposal to limit the pool of people who can challenge a medical marijuana dispensary business license to those living within 500 feet of the proposed location. UCLA's Daily Bruin looks at how that could affect the siting of dispensaries in neighborhoods popular with students. Apparently, Massachusetts isn't the only state being criticized for the limited access patients have to medical marijuana, as some folks in Florida are complaining of a months-long backlog on getting approved as registered patients, with some waiting since July to become properly certified. The state said they're dealing with a huge new influx of applications and that they've reached out to a third-party company to help with the process. The Denver Post has an excellent long-form piece up examining their own relationship and history with covering prohibition, both alcohol and marijuana, from a media point of view. Totally worth the click over and read, especially for the old-timey historic photos. And finally for today, a story that is near and dear to my heart as both a former student drug reform activist and a former school newspaper staffer, with high school administrators in Illinois seizing all the printed copies of the Evanstonian, the student paper of the Evanston Township High School, a suburb located north of Chicago, because of articles written about the use of cannabis by students. The articles in question looked at some of the factors causing some students to use cannabis, as well as speaking with a student dealer about some of the particulars of the trade. School administrators say they grabbed the papers post-publication because they say the articles condoned the use of cannabis, charges that the paper's student leadership denies. According to the Student Press Law Center, school administrators and the paper's staff recently met 3 weeks after the papers were initially seized and agreed that the articles could be published if warnings of marijuana's dangers were included. Another good one to open up in full. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJ Today Daily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, the MJ Today Century Club, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. Today's your day. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with Marijuana Today. today.
One take, Shay. One take.